Hello there, welcome to the PlugBox Podcast, where we discuss all things EV and renewables and generally have a damn good chinwag. Anyway, on with the show.
Good evening, Mr. Pete.
Hello there.
Good evening. How are you today?
Splendid. Another week, another PlugBox Podcast.
Yes, welcome everybody to episode 9 of the PlugBox Podcast. This week, Pete and I have got a few interesting articles and discussion items to share with you all. Would you like to know what they are, Pete?
Go on, give us your list rundown.
Well, I think first of all, we're going to go to a well-known British brand, Caterham, and some confirmation from them that they are looking to launch their first EV in a few years' time. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about your favorite person on earth, Elon Musk, and his company Tesla's U-turn on accepting Bitcoin. And then we will look at Renault and their aspirations to maybe look at battery swapping. And then I think we'll wrap up with an update of your On.to experiences.
Ah, yes. I'll save that for the end.
We'll do that. Can be a cliffhanger. Doesn't sound good though, Pete.
Well, we'll get to it.
All right then. So first up, Caterham. Caterham. What can we say about Caterham, Peter?
Make cars out of scaffolding?
They do make cars out of scaffolding, yes. So Caterham is a very historic brand here in England and, of course, around the world. Famous for making the Caterham 7, which, let's be honest, it's a kit car. It historically was a kit car. You can buy it as a kit or you can assemble it yourself, I think I'm right in saying. Recently acquired by a retail group called VT Holdings. And their CEO is a Japanese guy. So it's quite a combination they've got going on now. Parent company owned and run by Japanese with a very traditional British industry subset. But they've come out as saying that they're going to introduce an EV. An EV kit car. Now, whether you'll actually make that yourself or whether you can buy it from them direct, it's unclear. Details are a bit sketchy now, Pete, but what do you make of that?
I mean, how many people do actually make them themselves?
Look, I may have misled people. I suspect from Caterham, mostly people buy them assembled, but there are other equivalents of that type of vehicle where you can buy a kit.
I think you could. I'm not sure whether you can or not now. I'm not that close to it, but I think you could buy them. But if you wanted to buy one in bits, I think the famous thing was the cost difference between buying it in bits and buying a box fresh one. It'd cost you more for the tools and time and space to actually build it than just buying one assembled. But anyway,
that's almost certainly correct. Yes.
Yeah. If you go down to your local Snap-on guy and try and get all the tools you need to build one, it's probably more than the cost difference to just get one that's already screwed together. But the
only thing I would add to that, Pete, though, is if you are really interested in getting to know a car, how it's built and set up, there's probably no better way of doing it than building your own.
True. Not for me, but true.
No, not for me.
But in terms of the EV one, I mean, I guess at least the waking up and smelling the coffee, as it were, or roses, or whatever the cliche is, writings on the wall. But I think it's one of those things where not only do they need to do it for compliance in future years, but as you say, if they've got a new owner or some new shareholders or investors or whatnot, they need to be seen to be making the right noises. Obviously, in podcast past, we talked about Ferrari making some muted noises about having an EV in the middle of this decade. And again, they have investors and shareholders and they have to be making the right noises. And obviously, Caterham's a much, much smaller company than what Ferrari is, and it's not public, but nonetheless, they have to be seen to be making the right noises. It'll be interesting with this new chap in terms of where they source the powertrain and batteries from. Of course, Caterham at the minute, I think, source, is it Ford engines? But certainly they don't make them themselves. So
Correct.
It'll be interesting to see who they tie up with to get some batteries and an EV motor.
Yeah, I'll be interested in the packaging of this, what the solution is going to be. But I mean, traditionally it's a front engine. I would say it sits behind the front wheels, but it's rear wheel drive. Obviously, battery mass is somewhat higher. They're saying that the performance of the vehicle will be comparable to one of their, let's say, one of their top rung vehicles. So I think it's the 620R, which is 0 to 60 in about 2.8 seconds. So it's quick, but obviously they're going to have to change the car quite substantially in terms of its setup, simply because of the mass and probably the weight distribution.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things with Caterham is they've always been super light. Way less than a ton, not much more than 500 kilos. But if you think of any decent battery size, it's 500 kilos for a battery pack or thereabouts. So I hope not, but it's probably going to be double the mass, I think, of a current Caterham. Yeah. So how they go about doing that, and will it still feel like a Caterham?
Well, that's interesting you say that. The CEO of Caterham themselves has come out as saying that's their number one aim, is to make the car agile in a way that the car is today. So it's got to ride and handle like a, quote, Caterham. So let's see.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah. Probably won't be on the waiting list for that one personally, but I like the fact that they're making that move.
I mean, I don't fit in a Caterham, but I like the look of them.
What the fear I have most from a car like that is, frankly, safety.
For people.
You've got no side impact protection whatsoever from a car that T-bones you. So that's where my fear lies. It's a very traditional design. Yes, over the years they've tweaked it, improved it. Performance on these cars is really quite spectacular, but not safety performance, I'm afraid. Right. Shall we segue? Elon Musk, your favourite.
Fine chap he is too.
He is, but is he playing the cryptocurrency market for his own gains?
Oh, I hope not.
I hope not too. I hope not. I don't want to get too much into the cryptocurrency subject. Either you follow it or you don't. But Tesla, as we know, is quite a progressive company. They are a disruptor. There's no doubt about that. They have changed the automotive industry in numerous ways. And 2 months ago, they said that they would accept Bitcoin as payment method for their vehicles. And I think around a similar sort of time, they actually also announced that they bought a load of Bitcoin. Perhaps you're better at correcting me on that, Pete. Am I right in saying they bought a load?
Yeah, so I think, what was it? I think they bought about $1.5 billion worth. And then actually in the recent filing, they've sold a portion. But I think it's been this furore around the power consumption and the CO2 emissions therein that people have been getting upset about Bitcoin. Obviously, not only the computational resource to mine Bitcoin, but the computational resource and emissions that comes from running the network. I think I read something earlier today that actually the tipping point was some, I don't know, standby coal power plant or something has been switched on purely for the purposes of mining cryptocurrency. How much truth is in that, I'm not sure, but
so I believe it's 75% of all Bitcoin transactions are processed in China, and of course China is large. No, that's not true. I may be misquoting here, but anyway, most of the processing of the transactions, I think, is done in China. where of course coal is their number one energy producer. So it's not a clean processing transaction currency.
No, and I think that's what it is. I mean, there's people that like to jump on it and say, you know, the same with Dogecoin. You're right saying we're not going to get into crypto, but is Elon just playing the market? And I don't think so. I think people are conflating him, just having a bit of a laugh, which is not typical for a CEO with influencing the market. But like a lot of things, and increasingly so, you can't ignore the energy demand and CO2 output that Bitcoin requires. So, it's kind of like making a smell and pinching your nose. You can't accept Bitcoin and then claim to be a sustainable company. So, yeah, I think that's why they've
Correct.
knocked it on the head, and rightly so, I suppose.
Correct. But of course, other cryptocurrency that is available does have a better, let's use the phrase carbon footprint. It may not be correct, but certainly a lower energy consumption on their transaction. So it doesn't mean to say that in future they couldn't still adopt an alternative. Just happens to be that Bitcoin is the most mainstream, it's the highest value, it's the most well known. But I would say that the currency fell just shy of 20% after that tweet from Elon Musk declaring that they weren't using it any longer. So he does have quite a big impact on it, just as one man.
I mean, yes and no. I think a lot of it, and again, full disclosure, I'm personally invested in Tesla, so obviously take whatever I say with a pinch or a boulder of salt, but it's not too similar to the stock price, how everything is geared up these days, especially with certain trading algorithms. It's not always, it's not someone at a computer, or it's not someone on the phone that's selling this stuff. It's an algorithm in a server farm somewhere, and if they all catch the same headline and they all start dumping at the same time, then the price spirals down, and you almost get like an artificial dip, and then it comes up quite quickly again. But yeah, nonetheless, it just shows how volatile it is that a small piece of news, like how many people were actually going to buy Teslas? Well, how many people actually buy Teslas anyway? A lot, but in terms of the world, not many. And of that, how many people are actually going to buy a Tesla with Bitcoin is even fewer. Why would that have such a big impact on the value of Bitcoin? But as I say, it just shows how volatile crypto can be.
Correct. Yeah, it can be a fun game to get into, but it can be a dangerous game. I think, as a rule, you should only ever invest what you're prepared to lose. So certainly don't take any financial advice from us, would be my message.
No, anything more than 57p is expensive for me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so I can correct, or I can update you on what I said a moment ago. China accounts for about 70% of Bitcoin production and mining. And of course, largely their power comes from coal. So
is that one of those where 80% of statistics are wrong?
Could well be. It's a fairly reputable publication that I am reading, so I trust it to a degree. But other mining centers around the world typically are powered by renewable energy, so hydropower, or I know in Iceland, I think there is geothermally powered cryptocurrency mining facilities, but I mean, they account for almost nothing when compared to China.
No. But it's important to mention, though, they're doing it for a reason, is that renewables overwhelmingly are cheaper. It's just the fact that in China, it's so hard to scale up the amount of renewables that they need in such a short period of time. Yes. But it's similar to, all the big tech companies, Apple, Facebook, Alphabet. Yes, they're doing it for the PR, and it looks great, putting solar panels up and wind turbines and putting server farms in the sea. But they're doing it because it's cheaper. They've got the cash to spend for capex to buy panels and turbines. But after that, other than a bit of maintenance and someone squirting some water on a solar panel from time to time, they're getting free electric. So,
yeah,
they're not doing it out of the goodness of the heart. They're doing it because long term it's cheaper than having a natural gas power plant or alike.
And I've said it before in podcasts gone by. While it's very easy to bash China, they are the number one country in the world switching to renewables. They are, I think, deploying more wattage of solar energy generation than any other country in the world each year. So kudos to them. And I've said it before as well, they do have a panda-shaped solar farm.
That is glorious. Everyone should go check that out.
Yeah, please do.
Renault.
Yes, battery swapping. So the story has come up again this week because, for a couple of reasons. First of all, the CEO of Renault has made a quote that he thinks that there is potential in safe and reliable battery swapping for EVs. This interestingly comes 10 years after Renault stopped looking at the idea. So previously they had invested in a company that's since folded as part of the Fluence ZE battery swapping feature. It never really went anywhere, so they mothballed it. But anyway, it's back. They are now going through some sort of study to check whether it's commercially and technically feasible, and they think it is, according to their CEO, Luca De Meo, I believe his name is, Pete.
Yeah, the guy from SEAT, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, of course, not to just flick straight back to our mate Elon, but Tesla, the original Model S, and I think still now has the ability to drop the battery pack out quite quickly. And I think they even did a bit of a skit or a demo in the Model X launch where they dropped 2 packs out and replaced them quicker than you could fill an Audi Q7 up with gas at the petrol station. But Tesla, as much as I think the cars have still got the ability to do it, knocked it on the head because people just weren't using the swap stations. They were predominantly either charging on the road or charging at home. But mainly, again, if you think of the use case, you've got relatively affluent people buying expensive cars. They're going to have a driveway to charge on. So why would they need to do battery swapping? And if we go to China, obviously NIO it's one of the things they're known for is how many battery swapping stations they have and how much battery swapping they do. And the reason why, of course, is because you have a lot of people in kind of the Chinese mega cities, if you like, where they don't have off-road parking, so they don't have somewhere to charge. So battery swap stations make sense. And I think from a Renault point of view, Renault's brand is making small, affordable city cars. So does that fit with their brand that actually maybe the customers of small, affordable EVs, if that's where they're going, might not have a driveway and they might live in some urban area where it's more convenient to do a battery swap than it is to sit at a charge station, public charge station somewhere. So, maybe that's the reason it makes sense in my mind. But I think the more alternatives people have, the better. Of course, number one would be to charge at home, but not everyone's got the luxury of that. And a 5-minute battery swap, of course, is better than sitting at a charge station, even if it's for only 15-20 minutes. If you can swap a battery in a couple of minutes, then that's maybe a better use case.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned NIO, actually. A few people in the media are speculating that the comments from Luca De Meo are because NIO have announced that they want to introduce battery swapping stations into Europe. And they're targeting Norway specifically as the first European country to do this. And we know Europe. Yes, we know that Norway's adoption of EVs are leagues ahead of pretty much everywhere else in the world. And NIO are looking to build 4 stations around Oslo this year. So a quick adoption potentially in Norway. And I suspect this will be a proof of concept in Europe. And if it goes well, we might see more of them.
I think it's good, and it's always good to offer the consumer choice. At the minute, you've got the choice of a petrol station or a petrol station, whereas in the not too distant future, maybe you can charge at home, you could charge at work, you can charge at a supermarket or shopping centre. You'll have some rapid chargers somewhere, and maybe throw into the mix battery swapping as well. And it gives this palette for people to pick from. Consumer choice.
Anything that makes EV ownership more viable to more people is a good thing in my book.
Definitely so.
But I think battery swapping from Tesla's point of view is not something we're likely to see in future, based on the fact that they want to make the batteries themselves part of the structure. So they're not going to be so easily replaceable, I wouldn't have thought.
It's always, I think, kind of eye-opening with Tesla, because certainly in Europe at the minute, there's many companies, Northvolt, for instance, that are rushing towards making a gigafactory similar to what Tesla are doing or have done. And then Tesla come along at Battery Day and say, we're going to do something completely different. And again, this is something that Tesla did years ago, figured out that maybe it doesn't work for their product. And as you say, they're now going to the battery pack being an integral part of the structure, not too dissimilar to mobile phones or cell phones. But they always seem a step ahead. But nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see what works out. But yeah, the consumer choice is the key one. As I say, Renault's brand is around affordable small city cars. So yeah, I think in that scenario, battery swapping makes sense.
Certainly does.
Speaking of small affordable city cars,
and Renault, more interestingly, I feel a segue coming on.
Hell of a segue. Yes, my On.to update part 3.
Part 3. Please go ahead. Share with us what's going on.
So I don't really want to be a Debbie Downer if I'm honest with you, because On.to, as we've mentioned before in podcast past, a kind of a electric car subscription service here in the UK, and they're kind of the first of its kind. I originally signed up for it back when it was EV Easy, which I think is a better name myself. But anyway, it's called On.to these days. And the sign-up procedure is kind of, as you would imagine, for driving cars, is send us a photo of your driving license and give us a credit card to bill you on. And it's kind of as simple as that, really. So because I'm between jobs, I needed a car for a small period until I get another one. And I thought, great time to try it out for a couple of months. It's only a few £100 a month. I'll try it out. Have a spin in the Zoe. Booked the car a few weeks ago. Picked a time slot on a day. All confirmed, no problem, in the diary. All booked online, no faff, not having to call anyone. Delivery day rolls around, car doesn't show up. Good. So the problem then is similar to a lot of companies that try and do everything online, is when you actually try to speak to a human, it's nigh on impossible. The concern for me was when you book a car with On.to is there's either a morning slot or an afternoon slot. I think it's 9 mile 1 or 1 mile 5 in the afternoon. So I'd sat around in the house all morning waiting for the car, and it didn't turn up. When I finally managed to speak to someone, they were like, "Oh, it'll be a few more hours," but I had an appointment, so I couldn't just sit in the house. And being very honest, it was quite an infuriating process trying to justify why they should rebook an appointment that they'd missed. It wasn't as if I'd forgot to be in their house or I'd cancelled the appointment or, last minute. it had been booked for weeks, and like most of these things, the third party company that they'd, I think, worked with to deliver the car hadn't fulfilled the commitment. So it was a bit of a faff sorting it out, and I could have potentially been without a car. If someone had booked a car on a particular date because that's when they needed it, they could have been in the lurch. So honestly speaking, it wasn't the greatest of experience. Eventually, I got through to a very nice lady called Olga, who sorted me out with a refund for the delivery fee, and obviously the 3 days from Friday to Monday when I should have had the car. And as I say, rebooked it for a Monday morning delivery, and it did come Monday morning post haste at about 9:15. So it got fixed in the end, but it wasn't as seamless as it should have been, and it wasn't as seamless as what they make it out to be. Now, I know a lot of people have had very good experiences, but sadly, like most of these things, I can only speak for mine, and it wasn't as painless as it should have been.
Up until that point, you'd said that generally everything was quite smooth. I think we commented last week that the ordering process was all very clear. What information you had to provide was easy to do, easy to follow. The app's good. But,
the app is really good. The booking process online is really good and really smooth. But like I say, I think that's the problem that a lot of companies have is they might make a really good internet-based product, but when that falls down in the real world because Mick hasn't delivered a car on time, then actually trying to speak to a human, they're not so good at, because they're fully in on everything's an online form. It's like, but what happens when it doesn't work? So as I say, eventually I did manage to get through to a human, Olga, that was very lovely and helped a rather frustrated me out. As I say, it worked out in the end, but it was a bit stressful for a while. I could have been out without a car. Luckily, I had another one to use. But it wasn't as painless as it should have been. But eventually, I got the Zoe, and I've got to be honest, I'm quite impressed with the little Zoe ZE50 GT line, if I'm honest with you.
Well, let's hear a little bit more about it. First of all, how much have you had to use it? Have you had much of experience driving it yet?
I mean,
about town distance, or
I've been kind of, and I guess this is a litmus test for how much I like it. Is I've been making excuses to use it, to go out and have a bit of a play, or sit in the car outside in the dark with the light on and have a poke around with the menus and the settings. And it's not quick. It's a small city car for all intents and purposes, but like most EVs, it's quite nippy. It's as I say, it's not fast, but it's not slow either. It's quite nippy about town. I'm doing quite a long run tomorrow being Friday, on the motorway, 100 miles or so. So I can report back on how good it is on a journey, because Renault say in theory it should go over 200 miles. I'm a bit sceptical from what I've seen so far. I think it's got, gross 52 kilowatt hours battery or thereabouts. So
probably 50 usable, if that.
Yeah, even if you say it's got 50, that means it would have to do 4 miles per kilowatt hour to get to 200. To get more than 200, I just can't see it myself. But
I think we should acknowledge that although it is May here in, it's still it's cold
horrendous
in the UK for this time of year. It's not good for our EV range at all, sadly. Not a huge impact, but enough to be frustrating.
No, and the best thing, honestly, about the Zoe is it's just a nice place to sit. Like, there's nice little cubbies here and there. There's a wireless charge pad. There's a place to stick your phone and some USBs. There's a nice little gear shifter, which feels amazingly good for the segment of car that it's in when you use the little gear shifter. It's got the portrait screen, which it looks nice for the software that Renault have, but like most folks these days, I use Apple CarPlay. And being in portrait, I don't think is that great for CarPlay.
Right. Okay.
But personal taste. But yeah, going back to the previous comment about Renault making affordable city cars, or they make, small affordable cars. It's kind of their brand. It's their thing. And they seem to do a lot with a little. And as I say, the interior really is a nice place to be. How good it is on a long journey, as I say, I'll find out tomorrow. I miss an armrest, if I'm honest with you. There's a couple of times where I've flung myself in the car and kind of fallen into the middle for lack of armrest. But you can't have everything. But yeah, maybe I'll either touching it again next week or the week after when I've spent a bit more time with it. But yeah.
Good. Well, we'll look forward to hearing more reports about the car in weeks to come.
Tales of the Zoe.
Yeah. I think that covers all our topics for tonight, Pete.
Is that about it?
I think we can wrap up then and say thank you very much to everybody that has listened again on YouTube. This episode will be posted shortly. And we'll reconvene again next week for some new topics.
Episode 10, double digits, Pete.
It is. Yeah, what a milestone.
Might have to get some party poppers.
Yes, we will. Great.
On that note.
Thanks again, everyone. We'll close there. Speak to you all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.